Yeah, it definitely would have been hard to beat out Stetson, who can push it down the field. We all know. So.
Welcome to My Gotta Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, my co-host John Powell and I are joined by friends of the show, Hunter Jones and John Smith. We discuss playoff expansion, recruiting, the transfer portal, name, image, and likeness, and you guessed it, uniform talk. Remember, you can follow us on social media at My Gotta Podcast. And if you like what you hear, please subscribe, rate, 5 stars obviously, and review the show. If you leave us a review, you just might hear it on an upcoming episode. Now, let's join the conversation in progress. So you'll hear some different voices than normal. So got John Powell here as always, but also have a couple of special guests this time. So we've got John Smith, aka John Tweets Sports, on with us, and also Hunter Jones, aka Hunt the Jones. I'm sure everyone who listens is familiar with them from Twitter. They are frequent receivers of dog bones of this show. We mention them all the time. And actually, Hunter did our dog bone graphic, actually, our new and improved 2021 dog bone graphic for us. So we have, I don't know, I guess a variety of topics that we'll go through. But I think kind of wanted to start with playoff expansion. And I know John and I did the Dog Sports Live and kind of talked through that. So I think, I'm definitely more anti-expansion. John was kind of okay with it. I'm trying to remember where you guys actually, Hunter, I know you gave me your proposal as well, but I guess John Tweets, what's your kind of overall, I guess, high level reaction to the expansion?
Oh man. So I don't mind expansion. I just don't think it's going to change the outcome. And so I think at the end of the day, I'm always the type of person when I hear about these types of things, I'm always thinking through like, but what is it going to change? And realistically, I think you're going to have a couple of years of some pretty hyped games in that kind of first round, but longer term, once you get to the second round where you have the top 4 that already have the bye, I don't think the outcome is going to drastically change. The FCS is a good example of this, where you've had North Dakota State win 8 out of the last 10 or 11 national championships, and they have 24 teams, right? So you have a 24-team playoff, and you have one team that's won 80% of the national championships over the last 10 years. So ultimately, I don't love expansion because I just don't see the point. So, it's kind of like it's obviously it's a money situation. The playoff has gotten stale. They've said, some estimates have been well upwards of $1.2 billion that this is going to bring in for television rights to the games. But at the end of the day, I personally feel like we know by the time you get to the end of the season who the top 2. We've seen it with the last, 3 or 4 years. LSU in 2019 beat Oklahoma by 35 or something, in the playoffs. So I think by the time you get through all of, no matter what UCF wants to say, no matter what Cincinnati wants to say, or Coastal Carolina, you get to the end of the season and you know who the top 2 or 3 likely are. And I think expansion is just, personally, it's not necessary for me. Now, I don't have a solution. I'm not analytical, like my guy Dog Stats. I've heard all the banter and read all the things, and so I think for the fans, for some conferences, I think it'll be a good thing for a few years. But ultimately, I think when you see that the outcome doesn't change, you end up back exactly where we are now, right? I think somebody did some analysis and said since 2014, the Big Ten would have had 20 teams in the playoffs. The SEC would have had 19 teams in the playoff at a 12-team expansion. But ultimately, when you stack even all of those kind of gaudy numbers from those two conferences over the last 7 years, how many teams they would have gotten in the playoff. Was it really going to change the outcome between Alabama, Clemson, LSU, Ohio State in 2014? I just don't think so.
Yeah, I feel like
So,
it's a reaction to like Alabama fatigue, basically, or you can extend that to other teams,
Yeah.
right? Alabama, Clemson,
Yeah.
whatever you want to say, fatigue. But
Yeah.
like, is it going to really change that? I don't think it will either. I don't know.
I mean, how much fatigue do you have for North Dakota State if you're in the FCS? I mean, really, like you're, those teams are like, get them out of here, right? So,
right. And that's crazy. At 24 teams, I actually didn't even know. I did not know that until like you brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know you had mentioned it on Twitter, and we picked that up last time.
Yeah.
Are you going to mention the SEC shorts, Jim? Like that was just perfect timing the other day.
Yeah, the new SEC shorts with the playoff expansion, and Alabama is like playoff is saying
we need to see other people. 12 other people.
12 other people. Yeah, those guys don't miss. Hunter, I feel like you actually had an idea, right? That we were texting about before. I think it was before we went to 12. What was your idea? Your model?
Well, first, I agree with everything that has been said. Let's call it what it is. A 12-team expansion is nothing more than a number one money grab, more football, more televisions watching football. Number two, it's a response to all of the criticism that the committee or whoever's in charge is getting from the UCFs of the world, from the Coastal Carolinas, the Cincinnatis of the world. It is just a way to basically shut them up. Here's your playoff spot. Go get beat by Alabama by 30 points and be quiet. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Anything more than 6 that's what it is. It's let's make money, and we don't care if these games are blowouts because people are going to watch them. And don't talk to me about it anymore. Don't complain about not being in it anymore.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
I agree with you, man. I was actually really surprised that they came out with the number 12 so quickly. Like the fact that we went from 0 to 100 that fast was really surprising to everybody. Like when the trickles and the rumors started coming out that there was going to be 12 teams, like I was like, what? Wait, what? 12 already? Like what?
Yeah,
we're just gonna cut to the end, guys. Like, look, this is over. We're not doing this anymore.
I was gonna say the one that I had texted y'all about was having 6. That's why I said 6 when I first started, because that gives you all of the Power 5 champions and an at-large. And I'm trying to read what I wrote because that was a long time ago. Basically, you get your SEC champion, your ACC champion, your Big Ten champion, your Pac-12 champion, and your Big 12 champion. And then whatever at-large team is ranked the highest. And I think I said the at-large needed to come from the independents or the highest-ranked non-Power 5 team. So it would shut them up, basically. And a lot of people argue against that and say, well, what if you have the situation like 2017 when Georgia wins and then you have Alabama who got in at 4 with a 1 loss to Auburn? Well, tough titty for Alabama. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't lose. Don't lose in November if you want to make the playoff. That's my answer to that. You win your conference. What if you have Northwestern upset Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game? Tough. Ohio State don't lose the championship game.
Yeah.
Basically, that's the premise of it. And then I said top 2 get a bye, which rewards you for having the best regular season. It makes the regular season important. You want the bye. You want to be ranked number 1 or number 2. 6 plays 3, 4 plays 5. Then from there, the lowest rank plays the leftover highest rank until you get to the last 2. And it would keep the same New Year's 6 bowls as the big bowls because you would use the Rose, Sugar, Peach, Cotton, Orange, and Fiesta as basically a 5-game tournament because of the buys. And then the 6th bowl is the play-in game to see like say you have, what was this past year? Cincinnati and Coastal Carolina at the end. Okay. Play-in game. Which one of them gets in? Use that sixth bowl, and then the rest of my notes say, don't lose your conference championship to an 8-4 team if you want to get in. Baseball doesn't do that. Major League Baseball has division winners. What, the Cardinals win the World Series with a terrible team, but you know what? They won the playoffs and they're the champions. So.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about like the auto bids, right, basically gives the division winner an auto bid too, right? Because if you win your conference championship game, you're in. Well, then you're already in technically once you make your championship game. That's essentially the first round, right? Like an opening round or whatever. That's the thing. I'm surprised too that they went straight to 12. Like I figured we'd go 6 or 8, not straight to 12. The only thing, like the saving grace for there to me, like my concern has been like 16 and then like 24, all this kind of stuff. Like there's not that many elite college football teams. Like that's my concern. And then the regular season is really going to mean nothing, with the amount of teams and how many teams are really good. I don't know.
Oh no, I was going to say college football, right, it is one of the few college sports where it is so difficult to get parity, because the NCAA tournament, when you talk about March Madness, you talk about basketball, you can have Steph Curry at Davidson and they're going to make some noise in the tournament because they have Steph Curry. There's a lot of room if you have one or two players that you can really move the needle. Baseball is very similar. If you have Kumar Rocker that you can send out there every night for Vanderbilt, although I think he was struggling tonight. Go Hail State. Sorry, Hunter. But Vandy, we got to give it to Vandy. But you can have a player that can go out and really make a difference in the game. College football is not like that. You build programs like Alabama and like Clemson, and I would put Georgia and Ohio State and other teams in that category. And it takes so long to build those programs and get depth and get, in all of those positions to become good, that you're not going to have a team jump up and all of a sudden, be a Cinderella team. It just doesn't really happen that way with college football when you have, you're playing sometimes, 40 guys or 50 guys on the field every night. It's about depth, strength, scheme, speed, skill players, and it just takes a long time to build that type of program. And so that's just why I think it won't necessarily change the outcome. And I think, it'll be good. I'm excited. I'm personally excited to see Coastal Carolina, take on Ohio State or whoever. Like, yes, please give me that game because I think it will just be it'll be good for about the first 5 minutes, and then
give me that game till halftime.
I'm
turning it off.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
I guess I'm less upset about it now than I was like before it was announced. Like I was super freaking out, like it's going to ruin college football, all this kind of stuff, and like I'm very like old man, get off my lawn. But like,
I think that you're. Even when we were talking about it, like every one of us had the sense of inevitability that this was going to happen.
Oh yeah.
No matter what happened, it was going to happen. So like they basically just ripped the Band-Aid off for you. And it's been a week or two? It's been like a week or two, and you've had a chance to get used to it.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that we haven't talked about this playoff proposal that like on one hand is like a saving grace, and on the other hand, I'm a little frustrated by it because like Georgia being, I feel like Georgia should be in the hunt for the title at every year at this point, right? So if we win the SEC championship, then we would get bucketed into that top 4 or 5 or whatever that gets the automatic bids. And the part of the proposal is that the other teams that were like play in or whatever, like the first week games were going to be played on campus. Like imagine actually being able to play Florida in Athens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the things that
with
sounds
something serious on the line.
Right. So it sounds like that's one of the things that I think they're trying to evaluate, right? Because I think that was one of blowbacks on the proposal was that, so hold on, like I'm rewarded by getting a bye for being one of the top 4 seeds, but I don't get the home playoff game. And so I think I could see pushback around that. I mean, the Bulls are going to fight it, but I think there are people who want to say even like the first 2 rounds would be on campus, right? So that those 1 through 4, like those top 4 seeds, you get a bye and you get to host a playoff game as the second round.
That would be awesome.
I can see that being the change.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like the Alabama fatigue thing is just like, my whole thing was like, we can't even keep them out now. And so we're never going to keep them out with 12 teams. Oh, the interesting thing I saw, it was actually, what was it? College football schedules, CFP schedules. He put out something that had like, what the playoff would have been. And actually, I think Alabama didn't net gain any playoff berths ever since. If you go back to when the playoff era started, they actually wouldn't have made it any more times. I think we would have gained, I think, two or 3 more times. We basically made it. We would have made it every year from, I think, like we would have made 17, 18, 19. And then I think even 20, right? We would have made it 4 years in a row. So we would have gained 3, but Bama would have gained none. It's interesting.
Yeah. Alabama would have missed it. They would have missed it in 2019. Because they in 2019, what's so wild about 2019 is that in a 12-team playoff, the SEC would have put out LSU, Georgia, and Florida in 2019, which to me is just it's just interesting because Alabama lost to LSU and Auburn, Florida lost to Georgia and LSU, and Georgia, we laid the egg at South Carolina or at home versus South Carolina, and then lost to LSU. So that's interesting. Yeah, it is interesting to think about 2019. If you look at this, it's like you have two loss teams from the SEC. Georgia won the division, so I guess that's why we'd be in. But then it comes down to Florida and Alabama, and they don't have, Florida, I guess, beat Auburn that year, but lost to LSU and Georgia.
But
so
that
they
scenario,
end up in over
that
Alabama.
scenario is exactly what we were talking about, Jim, where it's like, Georgia would have been in, we lost to Alabama in the SEC championship game, but we were still one of the best teams in the country. Like ultimately it wouldn't have mattered. Like the regular season and the SEC championship game, if the SEC championship game gets diminished in any way, shape, or form in the new expansion, to me, like I would revert back to the grumpy old man, get off my lawn, because I almost feel like that the SEC championship means more than in many respects the national title, because it's such a crapshoot to get there. But like, you win your division, and you're in the SEC championship, and you're going to be playing most likely Alabama, LSU, whoever it is, and if you can beat them, then you basically have beaten the best teams in the country. It's like game over.
Yeah. Well, what this comes down to, I think, and we likely don't have time to talk about it tonight, but what does this do for divisions? So if you're the SEC and you're looking at this, how do you think about divisions? Do divisions matter anymore? Do you start, considering doing away with divisions and figuring out? Because if you have the chance now to get, multiple teams in every year, how does the SEC longer term think about division, and other conferences think about divisions?
Yeah, I think like you look at maybe the round robin type things, right? Like, but that could you would need contraction in some places, like when it was the Pac-10, right? And they had, and they were able to play full round robin. Big 12 used to be able to do that. I know Seth Emerson has floated like a pod kind of scenario where you do away with divisions and everyone has basically like a pod. So you would have some permanent opponents, but then everything else would rotate. So like Georgia, for example, like our permanent opponents would be, I think his proposal was like, Auburn, Florida, I think it was South Carolina actually. And like, so like you play those 3 teams every year, and everyone has 3 teams they play every year. But then that way you cycle through more frequently. I mean, right now it is ridiculous that like we still haven't played at A&M, and they've been in the SEC since 2012. Like, so it would eliminate that issue. But yeah,
I loved what Brian Kelly said this week. I'll just do one more point on this, not to belabor it, but
yeah,
they were talking about Notre Dame, because they're not in a conference, they will never be eligible for a bye. And Brian Kelly came out and said this week, he's like, yeah, but we don't play a conference championship game, so that's our bye week. And I thought that was an interesting like take on it, where he said, because we don't have to play the conference championship game, we have a built-in bye. And then if we do well enough to be in that 5, 6, 7 spot, then we'll have a home game. So, I think there are some people rejoicing like, oh, well, now Notre Dame, like, you're not going to have a bye. And Brian Kelly is like, yeah, but we are, because we don't play a conference championship game. So we're going to have
we do have a bye, guys.
So it was, so that was that was another point that came up this week in an interview with Brian Kelly that I was reading, where I was like, man, that's such
an interesting Notre Dame comment.
It's such a Notre Dame comment.
Such a Notre Dame thing to say.
Yeah. But also a very interesting thing to think about. If the committee was trying to penalize Notre Dame for not being in a conference by not giving them a bye, Brian Kelly was like, yeah, but we don't play a conference championship game, so we kind of have one anyway.
Yeah, I feel like it's a fair trade-off.
If we just beat up on the service academies and all the crappy teams from the SEC and the ACC, like, okay, well, fine, whatever. Like,
hey, but if you're Notre Dame, why would you not?
They passed Georgia.
Yeah, they have never beaten Georgia. All right, well, let's talk a little. Let's talk a little recruiting, maybe, because there's been a lot of movement with the 2022 class. So I know John Powell, you were texting me very, very on edge about this, and I was trying to calm you down. What are you still worried?
So I will say that yesterday's activities with Gunnar Stockton and Bear Alexander were certainly uplifting moments for me recently. So, yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that I had to kind of come to reality that we had been kind of feasting on the fact that so many of these guys, I don't know if other schools were just so slow out of the gate getting into the COVID recruiting and getting their processes in place without players being on campus, and Kirby and team were basically on top of everything and were able to pull in. I mean, it felt like that literally every week we were pulling in 5 stars. And Jim, John, you and I, all of us guys that were at Georgia for, the early 2000s, like it was like you maybe got 1 or 2 5 stars in a recruiting class, and it was a big deal even when that happened. Now, like we're a little bit spoiled, and so like when I see like 1 and 2 guys like that are 5 stars decommitting, I revert back to my Richt years, and I'm like, what is happening? What is happening?
Yeah, you're Munsoning on the recruiting.
I'm Munsoning on the recruiting. Yeah. So this is actually, I will say, I know that Rivals has got that big thing going on right now that they've been pushing out there, but like I haven't signed up for that because I feel like I would be like an alcoholic going into a liquor store, and I would literally just be like on edge, like going, I'd be like that meme of the guy with all the stuff on the background. I'd be like, you see, this is what happens.
That's from like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, I think, right?
The Sunny and Sunny. Yeah, exactly. Recruiting is definitely something I have to kind of like peel myself off the ceiling sometimes.
I try not to follow it. And I say, like, not to say that recruiting isn't important. Like, obviously it is. But I try not to get too wrapped up. I try to, like, trust Kirby and trust him that he's going to pull in a good class. And I'm not going to – I'll be happy at the end. And I'll rejoice those who we sign. I try not to get too wrapped up in the middle. But I don't know. John, Hunter, how are you guys been feeling about the Cruton? Or are you big into the Cruton? Hunter, do you do Cruton? Do you follow the Cruton?
I'm kind of like you.
Okay.
And it's kind of like you in the fact that when it pops up into my feed, I pay attention to it. And when it doesn't, I kind of just have the mentality that Kirby Smart is an elite recruiter. His assistant coaches are elite recruiters. and they're going to get what they need when they need it. And other than that, everything else is gravy. Yeah. And the whole thing about the decommits we're seeing here, especially right when, on-campus visits became a thing again, all you were seeing was we had kids commit pre-COVID or during COVID when you couldn't visit campus. Mm-hmm. And now that they can go visit other campuses, they're kids. I work with kids every day. Yeah. Whatever's the flashiest thing in front of them is going to be what they want. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like they go to Texas A&M and they're flashing whatever in front of them. I mean, I've seen the things that they post on Twitter. They got them in these big hotel rooms with all these, all the swag and all the gear and all the whatever. They show them this weight room and this sauna room, and here's my indoor facility, and mine's bigger than theirs, and that's what the kids go for. Let me put my uniform on and take a picture and give me a commit, and that's what they do. They're kids. They don't have the foresight. The coach says, "Give me a verbal," and they're like, "All right, yeah, I'm going to go there. Yeah. Give me some more of that. Let me post my picture on Twitter in a A&M uniform."
Right.
So I follow it in an unhealthy fashion, but
you're the degenerate.
But I do abide by one of my life rules when it comes to recruiting. I never let my happiness depend on the actions of 18-year-old boys.
Yeah.
I think that's a key life principle when it comes to recruiting. But no, I like the ins and outs and the challenges. And, for me, I think recruiting is just, it's so interesting. It's not, I don't live and die by who Georgia recruits and signs. I'm definitely on the train with Hunter. If Kirby is an elite recruiter, I trust Kirby. He's gonna give us what we need. But I think there's a combination of things going on here. Number one, I mean, when you're recruiting at the level that Kirby is and has been, when you can bring these guys in just to even get a commitment at this level with this number of 4 and 5 stars and elite recruits, you're naturally going to have people fall off. I mean, it's, again, to Hunter's point, kids say things, they commit, they get caught up in the new and shiny, and then they waffle a little bit, and some of them come out publicly and say, "Hey, I'm going to decommit and I'm going to go see, what else is out there." I look back at some examples that just give me hope. Like Adam Anderson is a good example, where Adam Anderson, he committed to Georgia all the way back in August of 2016, and then in April of 2017, he decommitted from Georgia and committed to LSU the same day. And then in July of 2017, he decommitted from LSU. And then October of 2017, he recommitted back to Georgia and signed with Georgia. And so I think some of that has to do with what's going on. Where are your friends going? Where are my visits? What are people telling me? And so there are examples definitely of commits that have been 5 stars, Adam Anderson being one, an elite player that I think is going to be fantastic for Georgia this year and make a huge difference on the team. That was a decommit and then a recommit. Then you have some that you just lost, right? Jaden Hazelwood was one. Yeah. John Emery Jr. at LSU was another one. That both commits to Georgia in 2019 that everybody thought, oh, these guys are going to be, they're going to come in and revolutionize the Georgia offense. And then there's always examples, right? Devontae Smith is one that
I was just going to say that. I've been waiting for John Powell to say Devontae Smith.
Yeah. There's always examples of the ones that got away, but Devontae Smith wasn't, he wasn't a 5-star. Like, I don't know the radars that Devontae Smith was on. He was a 4. Yeah, he was. Yeah. I mean, he was a good recruit.
He wasn't exactly like David Pollock.
He wasn't. But what I'm saying is, it wasn't like It wasn't like Adam Anderson or Bear Alexander, like just the hype around Devontae at the time. But you have some of these guys, you lose some, and then all of a sudden they become the best thing. I think the transfer portal also complicates things because you have people that commit, that sign that are with you for a year or two, and then they're peace out. That's a whole nother, now even getting them to stay once they're actually have 2 years in your program is going to be a challenge. So decommits don't bother me that much. I will say Dayon Bowie and Bear Alexander are two that, man, I really hope Kirby can pull in. Bear Alexander especially. I think he has the potential to be a really kind of generational player, and Dayon Bowie has all the skills, like complete athlete. So those are two. I don't want to diminish it. They're two big decommits, but I also don't worry about it because if you look at history, there's decommits that we thought were going to be great, went somewhere else, and Jadon Hazelwood I think he's caught, I don't know, like 10 balls at Oklahoma or something. He was injured for a year, but it's like, and John Emery Jr., who is a great running back at LSU, but he's had 100 carries for 500 yards over the last 2 years. And you think about the backfield that Georgia has, I think we're okay. So I always trust Kirby. And I do think that we will end up getting Bear Alexander back. I don't know about Dayon Bowie, but I think Bear Alexander is just on his walkabout. He's on his let me go on my world tour and see what's out there. And I think he'll come back around.
Jacob Eason did that, right? I mean, I don't know, talk about transfer portal too, but he had his flirtation with Florida. And then for the guys, in the never know category, right? You've got Roquan Smith is another example, right? Like has his commitment ceremony, commits to UCLA, still comes to Georgia. And then, I'm glad you brought the transfer portal, and we can probably segue into that. But I mean, you also never know. That's the other thing that I think Kirby is so good about is not burning bridges with these guys. And hey, there'll always be a place for you here. And D-Rob is the perfect example of that. Goes to Cal, comes back. Although now he's back in the transfer portal. So, he was on my list.
Gilbert.
Yeah, Eric Gilbert. Yeah, man. Yeah. Perfect example. Even better example, Hunter, for sure. Why don't we talk about that? I mean, so I've got the list I had jotted down, and I'm not sure if anything's changed since I wrote this down. This has been a couple of weeks, but most recent guys leaving Georgia. So you got Major Burns transferred out, and he's to LSU, I believe. And then D-Rob, I haven't heard anything, but I know he was confirmed in the portal. But then coming in, Eric Gilbert, Darian Kendrick, and then Brandon Turnage. Although I'm not sure, I don't know if we for sure know what's going on with him. But I don't know, a lot of movement there.
The mystery of Brandon Turnage.
Tyreek McGee, right?
Yeah, Tyke Smith.
Tyke Smith. Sorry.
Yeah, Tyreek Stevenson ended up going to Miami, so we lost that one.
The hero.
Yeah, Brandon Turnage is an interesting one because, hero of the Peach Bowl and then transferred to Miami. So it's a short shelf life here in the transfer portal. Yeah. I think what I love Brandon Turnage. Just real quick, that point is does anybody know what's happening with Brandon Turnage?
No. So the only thing I know where there was the rumors that he was gone. Right, it was all over Dog Vent, and then multiple people were reporting it. But then he tweeted pump the brakes, or I don't know why everyone's freaking out, or something like that.
Don't believe the rumors or whatever. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah. That's the last thing that's the last I've heard. And then it got into are they enrolled? Or are they on all this kind of stuff? And I haven't seen anything there.
Yeah. Well, because the issue is everybody says there was all this swirl around he's gone. Then he was pump the brakes, don't believe what you hear. And then the official roster got posted on the GeorgiaDogs.com, the official football roster, and he wasn't on the official football roster.
Yeah.
But he hasn't – I don't know that people have confirmed that he's in the portal. So that's an interesting one because I do think he can definitely bring some depth to the secondary. And he didn't play much at Alabama, but he, when you practice at Alabama against those guys, you play, you get that's better than game reps in some circles. But so that's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when Maurice Smith came to Georgia in 2016, right? That was kind of my concern. And I remember talking to a buddy of mine who's a Bama grad and being like, Like, are you guys upset to lose him? Like, was he's like, well, he's like, he's not a starter. He's like, he's good, but he wasn't starting or anything. I mean, that guy was the best player on our defense in 2016, which I guess kind of said a lot about what was going on at the time. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, I don't know if Kirby wants you, I have a feeling you're pretty good.
Especially at the defensive back position, right? Because that's like,
yes,
that's kind of like Kirby's baby, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you have, I don't know how much input Will Muschamp is having into that as an off-field analyst helping with the defense, but he played the secondary and is that's his baby as well. You have Coach Adai from West Virginia that's now leading the secondary. So you have guys that are in the upper echelon of secondary coaching. So if they want you, you have something there. So interested to see what happens with Brandon. I think Georgia, if you look at the teams across the country, I don't know another team, and I'm admittedly a homer, but I don't know another team that won the portal like Georgia. When you look at the pieces the gaps that they were there to fill, and the quality of talent on paper, at least that was brought in to fill it. Is there anybody else out there that won the portal in the off season? I don't think so.
No, I mean, you saw multiple news outlets talking about that. Like that. I mean, basically, you look at everything that we needed to fill between, signing day and the end of the season and all that kind of stuff. Like we literally filled every need. Like I told Jim this the other day. Like with the way that he's addressed the needs at the defensive back position, he clearly had concerns, because one of the names you didn't mention, Jim, was Darren Branch was another defensive back that we lost as well, like that transferred out. So he's basically culled the herd to a certain extent. To what extent that's like chosen versus the players deciding to leave, I don't know, but I'd like to think that there's a little bit of Alabama in that in that old Kirby Smart, because it felt like that Alabama constantly had players leaving the program because they were like, listen, bud, you're going to play college football, but it ain't going to be here next year. You know what I mean? Like you can go wherever you want, but it's not going to be here.
Yeah. The roster management is coming straight out of Saban's playbook.
Exactly. And that's also another element of like, this is somewhat foreign territory for us because, like I said, we came from the Rick years. And so, the same old me, like goes back into that Rick shell of like, oh my God, everybody's leaving. Like, what's going on? Like, why is everybody transferring?
Yeah, well, that's the whole Alabama idea, right? Like, fill your roster with as many 5 and 4 stars as you can and run with it. Well, reality is that's not sustainable for how many spots they're all on the field. Like, they're not all going to get to play, and you're going to ruffle feathers. It's just how it is. But you recruit at a level to where you can ruffle feathers and you don't miss a beat. And I think that's where where he's trying to get with it. And that's where, like you said, Alabama is. People are in and out of that program all the time, but here they are.
Yeah.
And he's at that point. He's at that point with his coaching career at Georgia that he's gotten there. Like, you basically had a period of like, okay, these are very clearly going to be the starters for this team, right? And now he's recruited at such a high level. Now it's like, well, I mean, you're pretty good, but you're also like a 1A and a 1B. And we've seen that on the roster a little bit too. Like, okay, he's the starting left tackle here, but he's also, the second choice offensive guard or whatever. Like we've got guys like pivoting in and out of different positions, and there's a lot of rotation going on. And so like, that's something that, you talk about the Saban philosophy of like, he was also really good at getting guys to stick around and, stick it out for a couple of years at the end of their college career before they went to the NFL. So I think that some of that jockeying is definitely going on here with some of the roster management.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that's been the biggest difference so far is Georgia doesn't get those NFL ready, NFL caliber juniors to stay for that 1 year. Whereas Alabama, it seems like the ones that they need, they stay.
Mm-hmm. Let me tell you, all it's going to take is one championship, because all those guys are going to want to come back for more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, like you said,
we get over that hump.
The 1 year that they did get a bunch of seniors to stay, look what happened. Yeah. They were, a play literally away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I will say too, not to
too soon.
Yeah. Very much too soon, Hunter. But thank you for that. But not to diminish that roster, because that was a fantastic roster, with especially Nick and Sony for sure, just completely taking over games, and the offensive line incredible. But Kirby has built a better roster in a lot of ways outside of Nick and Sony, which you will never. It'll be so hard to replace, right? Like I love Zeus and I love Kendall and those guys, but they're not Nick and Sony. But the rest of the roster, you look across it, and man, there is some talent and some weapons. And if you can get those guys to stick around for a year or two, that year longer, and I think I agree with John Powell that once you taste that natty life, like once you live in that upper echelon, it becomes a lot easier if you're on the fence of like, all right, well, I could be a low second round, third round, maybe fourth round draft pick, or we just won a national championship and I come back and I'm going to be in the spotlight for another year. I think it gets a lot easier to keep those guys around.
Yeah, and I think too, like even like so you've got those guys that are the first rounders that are leaving. But we've also need to cut out on is the guys that are leaving that have no business leaving. I mean, so you've got like Trenton Thompson at the end of 17. He should have stayed in school. Isaac Nada, guy should have stayed in school. Like, those guys. And I think I said this on something else and I forgot to credit. That's actually like Chase's line. So shout out Chance Dog 19. I know that's something he's really harped on Twitter a lot, right? Is like cut down on these guys that, if you're losing the surefire first rounder, right? Like, okay, like a Roquan Smith, understood. Although I do say if Roquan stayed 100%, we win the national title in 18. But anyways, I'm not saying he should have stayed. but that those I can live with. But yeah, like the Isaac Nadas, the Trent.
He definitely should have stayed. He went and got paid.
Oh yeah. When you're a top 10 pick, you go. I mean, period. There's no question. So
yeah.
All right. Well, so.
But let's just. I don't want to drop this bomb, but like I will just add in real briefly, Jake Fromm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Boom.
Look, John's just gonna throw that. Hold on, guys. I got a hand grenade. I'm gonna throw in here.
Sorry. If we're talking about guys that should have stayed,
that's the best.
I thought you were talking. Yeah, I thought you were gonna throw out. I thought you were gonna throw out Elijah Holyfield.
Well, Elijah Holyfield would definitely be there, but the pinnacle for me is, man, Jake Fromm. One more year, Jake Fromm.
That's all it would have taken.
So, I mean, all right. So
my question then is, where are these guys getting their advice? Like, clearly somebody is a bad advice giver.
So Jake Fromm, I mean, in Jake Fromm's defense, like, I mean, I don't want to get down into the.
Let's get into it, John. Let's get into it.
I mean, in Jake Fromm's defense, like he wasn't going to increase his draft stock any higher than he was 100%. At that point. Like there's no other upside other than the fact of I want to come back and live this college life and do this thing, get my head.
Hold on. At the time he made the decision, you're right. But you're telling me if he plays for Todd Monken last year, he doesn't improve his draft stock?
He didn't know. Like, I mean,
you don't think so?
I don't think he knew that Todd Monken was coming.
No, he didn't. He didn't know. He didn't know at the time. He didn't because that hadn't happened yet. So that's what I'm saying. But
keep in mind, he just completely like endured. And when I say endured, like I mean that in every like beleaguered sense of the word, endured Coley all year long. Like,
yeah.
Dude, like I would have been done with it too. Like, dude, what am I doing here? I'm out. Peace. I'm out. I don't care what you do. I'm out.
I think that had a lot to do with it. And then on the other hand of that too is like, even if Kirby said like, don't worry, we're going to get rid of Kirby or Coley, then maybe he's like, so now I have to have my third offensive coordinator in 4 years. Like maybe he didn't want to get that. So, all right. Let's move. I can't believe you dropped that bomb, but I can't believe I didn't even think of that. Like that's the best example. So thank you.
Hey, and let's not pretend like one of the knocks on Fromm was his arm, and Monken likes to push it downfield. So
that's true.
Even if he had given him a heads up that, hey, we're looking at this guy Monken who likes to air it out, like wasn't 100% in his wheelhouse.
Yeah, it definitely would have been hard to beat out Stetson, who can push it down the field. We all know. So
sorry, I have to collect myself after that. Oh man. All right. So I think the big news of the week, right, is so we're recording here Wednesday, June 30th at night, and tomorrow the name, image, and likeness takes effect, and we knew it was going to happen for many states, but it wasn't confirmed until today, actually, that the NCAA stepped in and said it doesn't matter what state you're in, it's across the board. I'm excited about it. I think it's been a long time coming. I think it took too long for us to get here. But I don't know.
Here's a question. How many car dealerships are literally waiting to cut the check at midnight right now? Like, how many guys are just waiting? Like, hey, man, we got less than 2 hours. I'm going to write this check.
Well, I know there's a lot of guys that definitely have stuff, lined up right ahead of time to take place tomorrow. I mean, there's all kinds of like the car dealership. I mean, personally, like that's what I can't wait for. It's like the local commercials. Like, we like to exchange gifts on Twitter a lot. I mean, there are going to be some amazing, like just ridiculous commercials, I think, that are going to come out from who knows where, like random local business in Tuscaloosa. Like, can you imagine the kind of commercials that are going to start coming out it's going to be a goldmine.
So instead of Ric Flair, they're going to have they're going to have Najee Harris out there.
Yeah. All I can think about when y'all talk about that is like that commercial, the car commercials from the guy around Atlanta. He gets like Chip Carey to come in and like talk for him, and like Ozzy Albies, and then like Trey Young was on there one time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The biggest bummer about name, image, likeness is that Ben Cleveland is no longer around for the name, image, likeness. Because you talk about, hunting commercials or car dealers in Northeast Georgia with Big Cleveland, come on down and ask for Big Ben or something. I mean, I think there would have been so much goodness in there that we're going to miss out on.
Some squirrel product somewhere would have definitely endorsed him.
Yeah, it's going to be. I don't know. I feel like that's going to be incredible. Like you'll get like the big name guys. I mean, I don't know what like they're. I mean, I'm assuming some guys will be like Nike or whatever. I guess I don't really know. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you can see some of those big name guys get big things like that. But I'm kind of more excited about the random ones. I mean, if you just think about like over the years, the ridiculous coaches commercials. Like remember like the Osmos pressure treated. Remember Osmos pressure treated pine? Like look for the yellow tag. Like before it was Yellowwood. I mean, those commercials were so ridiculous. Like the Jim Donnan commercials. And like the Lay's potato chips, all those things over the year, or Golden Flake, right? I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be like endless entertainment for me personally. I don't know.
I'm waiting for the big boys. Like, I want to see like, okay, we got name, image, likeness out there. So you got a lot of these players. So let's just take Georgia, for example. So Georgia's a Nike sponsor, right? So when is Nike going to pony up and like JT Daniels? Hey, we're going to sign you, and you're going to be hawking Nike products all year long. And, to that point, like how many of these kids that are playing for schools that are sponsored by Adidas or not sponsored by any of the major ones, like, back in the day when Georgia Tech was Russell Athletic, like How many of those guys are going
they're
to get
still sponsored by Adidas? So
How many of those guys are going to get iced out of some deals? Like, sorry, dude, you play for Georgia Tech. Sucks for you. Like, maybe
what
you should have gone to a
happens
different
when
school.
you have a player who's like not top tier at somewhere like Georgia, who's a Nike school, get approached by Adidas and say
Exactly.
So what?
Yeah.
So then, what does it turn into when Nike is your
contract
team?
conflicts.
You're wearing a Nike jersey and Adidas. I mean, it's kind of like the NFL. They do the same thing.
I tell you where it's big, and this is a little off topic, but somewhat related, is on the soccer side of things. Like, you will see guys like that literally can't go to teams because their shirt sponsors are Nike or Adidas.
Yeah.
Like, you had that with David Beckham. That was part of the reason he left Manchester United is because he wanted to go to where an Adidas sponsor was, and that was Real Madrid at the time.
We had something with the Olympics, right? Like with the Dream Team. Wasn't there a Jordan issue with like the Dream Team wore Reebok and he was Nike and something happened there?
He taped over it.
Yeah.
Well, I think so. Not surprisingly, and much to my chagrin, but like Alabama came out and they created the Advantage, is what they're calling it, which is their program that's going to help student athletes navigate the name, image, likeness. You can go online, you can Google Alabama the Advantage, and they have their FAQs and they have like what you can and can't do. And there are a lot of things that are governed by not permission from the university to make money off of your name, image, likeness, but there are some rules that are in place. Like, for example, most universities that I'm seeing out there, Alabama is the one that has it more publicly posted, says that you have to get permission to use any Alabama logo or anything like that related to any of your name, image, likeness, contracts or engagements. So you can go and do the car commercial, but you can't mention Alabama. You can't, you can't be a representative of the school of Alabama in that, kind of, and then there are other rules around certain things. I think it's going to be interesting. I don't think it's going to make that much a difference in terms of you mentioned the lesser known players, right? I think they'll have, maybe their place, and hopefully they'll be able to make some money. But I think the guys in the locker room, they know who the guys are, right? Like, if you're in the locker room with Trevor Lawrence at Clemson, I'm not getting the Nike sponsorship. Trevor is getting the Nike sponsorship.
Yeah.
But one thing to think about, right? We talked about the transfer portal. Name, image, likeness, I think, is a big opportunity for schools who do it well to keep talent and retain talent and keep the talent out of the portal. Because if you build those relationships with those businesses, if you have kind of created the program to say, hey, we're going to help you maximize this if you come here, and then if the school delivers on that, then I think that keeps good players out of the portal. Because think about how difficult it would be if if you're doing a decently with your name, image, likeness here in Georgia. Now I'm going to go. What are you going to do? Go transfer to USC and kind of start all over, right? So I think that's one angle that not a lot of people have talked about is what does it do to the transfer portal? Even if you're not upper echelon, if you've just created some inroads with your name, image, likeness for this school in this part of the country, whatever, does that keep kids around? I think that's one advantage. Yeah.
Go straight back to Jake Fromm, right? I mean, like he may have been more valuable with name and he may have been a bigger brand at Georgia with name and image and likeness than he could be at Buffalo. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Between State Farm and Onward Reserve and Gator hunting utility vehicles.
I'm telling you, man.
Jake Fromm could have killed it.
My product was
in Middle Georgia, man.
The Jake Fromm signature Costa sunglass retainers. That was my product. That was my pitch.
What about Stetson Bennett and the mailman stuff last year? I mean, yeah, it's kind of like the Johnny Football thing. Like back when he was at A&M, like he could have raked in a bunch of money from that stuff too. Or Skull, yeah. Something John Tweets mentioned that I want to go back to was talking about how the schools like you have to have permission to have the Alabama logo if you're Devonta Smith or whatever, or Jake Fromm. Like you have to have permission to have your logo displayed in any of the advertisements that you're doing, right? Do you guys remember? You guys remember back in the day when we had like Sports Illustrated Kids or like the cereal box baseball cards where it was like King Griffey Jr. and it was very clearly like a baseball like scene, but all the logos were stripped out and it was literally just like the navy blue uniform, and it was like, wait, what? Is that what it's going to be? It's going to be Georgia. It's going to be all these Georgia players with like, you know, the red and black, and there's no logos.
I think so. Yeah. It probably will. I mean, you see some of that. I feel like it doesn't happen as much, but maybe you're right. Maybe it was a timing thing, because like I do feel like that was all over the place. Like, you know, there would be a Bo Jackson commercial. Maybe he's in like black and silver, but not necessarily with the Raiders, you know, patch or whatever back in the day. So yeah, I could totally see that. That's what they were. You have a hard time.
But that's where we're at right now. It's literally the Wild West. At 12 o'clock midnight, it becomes the absolute wildest of Wild Wests. Like cash grab, like dude, like go make your money right now as fast as you can before they put rules on it. Because this time next year, I have a feeling that it's going to look a little bit different than it does right now.
Well, it's going to, I mean, just the market will do that too, right? I mean, so you've got like the people who are wanting to put money up for these athletes. Like, I'm sure there's some people that are chopping at the bit, and, you know, who knows how it's all going to pan out. I think, you know, it'll settle, I think, over time a bit there.
At what point are people going to like put stipulations around this? Like, I mean, Jim, you and I were joking about this earlier today. Like, at what point does Nike sign the middle schooler to a long term contract? And on the contract side of things, like if you're a dealership or something like that, I keep using dealerships because I work in the automotive space, but like, and they literally are crazy as hell and will do whatever they want. So that's beside the point. So they lock these kids into these long term contracts, and you know. You have to stay at LSU. You have to stay at Georgia for 4 years. This is how much I'm going to pay you over 4 years. You know what I mean?
Well, think about the complexity of if you're on the recruiting trail. So you're on the recruiting trail now next year or the year after.
That's true.
And you have 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds that have a contract already signed for their name, image, likeness, that these schools that are recruiting them are having to review. Are having to like, are we gonna get ourselves in a situation if this player comes to our school, we sign this player, are they under a contract that we have to now think about? Like that's another angle that I don't think anyone has thought of like if people are going to signing these kids and then you're trying to recruit them, are they contractually obligated? And do you have to now review any contracts that they are under or that they have signed prior to signing?
Or on the flip side of that, how long until the coaches have that company owner with them on the recruiting trail?
That's where I thought you were going with it.
That's still illegal. According to the guidelines I've read, you know, like I think that in Alabama, I pulled it up, and the Advantage, their program, there's a line that says, it is not permissible for compensation to be provided in exchange for athletic performance or attendance to the University of Alabama. So they're saying like you can't get compensated in advance to attend the university, but how are you going to? But also, how are you going to like
contracts? This contract doesn't start till this time.
Yeah, well, how are you going to manage that too? Like if you know, like, come on, Nick. If to your point, Hunter, like I do think. If I'm Nick Saban or Kirby Smart, I am definitely figuring out like
exactly
how do I get a Nike representative with me when I come to your mom's house? You know?
Or like Kirby Smart brings them to Athens, and you know they're coming through on their OV, and then over there you're going to learn about our name, image, likeness program, and then there's a booth for 7-6 apparel where you can just talk to them. Yeah, there's a booth for Onward Reserve where you can just talk to them.
It's a trade show.
Not a sponsor. This is where we live. Not a sponsor.
Yeah, that's amazing. I actually love that. Which I mean, and I will say we will add. I mean, because 7-6 Apparel, they're friends of the show. We've had
of the podcast.
We've had Chase on, and according to reports, we understand that the Kendall Milton brand will be coming from 7-6 or some branch of 7-6, according to reports. So that's what I read on the Twitter.
Rusty Manziel tweeted that. Yeah, Rusty Manziel tweeted that, and maybe a few inside sources.
So yeah, we'll see what's what exactly is going on there at midnight tonight.
No, but
I do think technically though, Kendall Milton's dad did confirm that. By the way, Rusty Manziel tweeted that the guys from 7-6 Apparel were going to be running his e-commerce site, and then Kendall Milton's dad quote tweeted that and said #excited. So I would take that it's confirmed.
Did we ever expect that Chris Milton was going to be that, wasn't going to take advantage of that?
Father of ballers.
Father of ballers. But to your point, it's insane. Like you could literally be on a recruiting visit, like, hey, sorry, I'm just getting a call. Sorry, I'm going to take this call from Nike. Hold on, you want to talk to him? Listen,
no. Not even Nike. So let's get closer to it.
Jim Bob's dealership.
I'm getting this call. Hey, I'm getting this call from. I'm getting this FaceTime from Kendall Milton. He's at an official autograph signing with like an actual player on the roster, FaceTiming from an event with their logo on, I think it's going to be a lot closer than even, Nike or whatever. You're going to have players on the team that are going to be there and say, this is how much money I'm making because I came to the University of Georgia and they helped me with my name, image, and likeness.
It's Kendall Milton literally in a money machine. The money tornado is just going around. I'm like, hold on, man. I got to catch all the dollar bills.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, I definitely agree. Like, I think it's going to change. It will evolve a lot from there's going to be a flurry of stuff tomorrow or tonight. There's going to be a flurry, and it'll probably calm down eventually. But I think it'll be fun to track.
It'll calm down. It'll calm down when the tax time comes and some of these kids start getting, getting bad tax advice.
It's all going to be relative to earnings, right? So we know that if it takes off, if you have a couple players who they have a logo and their brand blows up, and all of a sudden you see there's real money to be made, then I think it's going to be a real thing. Otherwise, I do feel like it'll be. I don't want to be cynical on it, but I do feel like it will be more likely compensation, in some form or fashion to help kids while they're in school, cover, additional expenses, make a little bit of money. And then you're going to have the autograph sessions at Dave & Buster's and whatever, and they'll be able to get paid for that. Also, since I would love Hunt the Jones' opinion on this. How many bad logos are we going to get from college athletes now that everyone is going to have their own personal brand? How much bad design is about to be put out into the world because of
my sister's cousin is a designer. Check it out, guys.
A lot more than you're going to see good ones. A lot more.
I mean that gets straight into kind of, I don't know where I think it was going. It's like, we can't even get the schools to get it right? Like, I mean, Hunter, how many football teams can even get their uniform right? So how can we expect players to get their brands right?
Did we just segue?
We may have just segued.
Did we segue?
I don't even know. I don't even know.
Uniform Twitter.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I love the uniform talk. I don't know, Hunter, if there's anything specific uniforms that you want to get into. I mean, I was thinking we were talking recruiting too, like how many times, like the recruiting pitch, you get to wear the uniform that you're never even going to get to play in, all this kind of stuff. So I don't know. I think that's another angle of it too, but
wore the black uniform Georgia wore the black uniforms with the spike collar twice last year.
I still can't believe it. I can't believe
we're
it.
Making
we had
progress.
3 alternate uniforms in one season. I'm shocked. Absolutely shocked.
He got rid of the offensive coordinator, and he put more black jersey days.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the world coming to?
Recruiting. That's what.
Well, that's true. That's true. It's a tool.
I don't
right?
know. I'm kind of. I don't know if I want to talk about uniform Twitter. I tend to make more enemies with Georgia fans when it comes to uniforms than I do friends. Because
you're surrounded by friends. Don't hold back.
I find myself in this weird when it comes to uniforms. I love, integrating unique designs and my big thing is it needs to be personal. And, go along with that branding thing. Like your uniform needs to be a personal reflection of the University of Georgia, the University of Alabama, University of Mississippi. It doesn't need to be this cookie cutter, spit it out off the assembly line and print it in these certain colors and slap your logo on the neck and call it done.
Was that a shot at the Big Ten? Sorry.
I'm taking no shots at anybody, but I will say this. Where I run into the hate that I run into, the uniforms that everybody loves, they are what I was talking about just now. It just so happens that we wore them for years and years and years. So it became...
Yeah.
Which is fine. Everybody loves the throwback uniform they wore against Arkansas. I loved it for one game. Everybody says, not everybody, but a majority of people say, we need to wear these all the time. No, we don't. Because now there are 5 other teams in college football that have the exact same design with different colors. Auburn comes to mind.
Oh, no.
Right off the bat.
Yeah.
The exact same uniform.
God,
and
Hunter, you're crushing my dreams, but you're totally right.
Listen, I'm just saying, Auburn's white jersey has navy blue numbers and 2 navy blue stripes with an orange stripe in the middle. Georgia's has black numbers with 2 black stripes and a red stripe in the middle.
Hunter, stop. You're telling us there's no Santa Claus. Calm down.
Which is why I like Bulldog Bold, because it's not just a block number. I like block numbers too.
Yeah.
Block numbers work for certain teams. Alabama, they need to own the block number. I mean, they're Alabama. Georgia, you would argue, they could own the block number because they had it for so long.
Bulldog Bold.
We got the Bulldog Bold on my glass.
But it's something different, and, people hate on Nike. You can hate on Nike. They put some bad designs out there, but they also put some great ones out there. And the reason they do it, when they do it right, when they hit on it, I don't know if anybody else even knows this, because nobody looks at uniforms like I do. You can actually, when a uniform comes out, they publish a whole website about how they designed it. And, some of them are just, BS. Nike, they call it Nike speak. We looked at this brick pattern at this building and made this pattern off of it. Sometimes that's just like, well, you know what? But sometimes they do it right. And, if it's something like the arch, and I think that's part of where Bulldog Bold came from, was something to do with the arch and something to do with, matching the curvature of the Power G. Like that kind of stuff, that's what everybody needs, because we don't need a bunch of cookie cutters out there.
Hunter, can I ask a question? Sure. What would be your ideal Georgia football uniform? If you had to roll with one, if you could design it and you had to roll with one, they were going to run out of the tunnel.
You put me on the spot here, because I have mulled this over. I've tried to design it. I can't tell you how many times I've sat down and tried to do it. I don't know. When I think of Georgia, I can tell you one thing it would have. It will have silver breeches, white stripe with a red stripe and a black stripe on the side. Now, when you come to a jersey, it would not have stripes that look like Auburn on the sleeves. I'd be okay with a block font if it was a custom block font. And what I mean by that is, think the difference between Alabama's block font and Michigan's. A lot of people don't even know they're different. They're totally different, especially on certain numbers. A custom block font, or keep Bulldog bold. Maybe if you keep a regular block font, have a drop shadow. I don't know. But it would include a black jersey that was worn more than every blue moon. I would wear black against Auburn every year in Athens. Yeah. If Auburn doesn't like it, oh well. Just like I would wear the red throwback pants at Tennessee every year. We're at Tennessee. And if they don't like it, oh well.
Dude, that's the music to my ears. That's my thing too. And like part of it is like, I feel like we make too big of a deal about it. Like if we just say, you know what, we wear black against Auburn, because the 2007 Auburn blackout game is like one of the greatest things I've ever witnessed in person. I mean, it was unbelievable. Yeah. And like, if you go, the best thing to do is to go on YouTube and look and find like people that videoed with their phones and like put on there when those guys run through the banner at the beginning. Like I've never heard noise like that to something that wasn't even a play in that stadium. It was absolutely nuts. And then the red pants at Tennessee, I mean, good enough for Herschel, good enough for me. I mean, that's what he was wearing. Look at the Bill Bates, the Bill Bates footage. That's what Herschel was wearing. And I don't know. I think you can never recreate the surprise of the 2007 blackout game, right? I mean, you can never recreate that again. Like that was a one-time thing. It'll never happen again. Stop trying to recreate it. Stop trying to make it surprise. Announce at the beginning of the season. Beginning of the season, schedule comes out. These are the games we're going to wear these uniforms in, which I think is kind of like what the NFL does or whatever. And Georgia, we did that in 2016, which is what was kind of weird to me. I think at the beginning of the season, we announced that we were going to wear black against, although it wasn't like the Nichols game, like we almost lost. I don't know, one of those games we wore black.
It was like Nichols State in the middle of the day.
Yeah,
it was like a noon kickoff,
right?
Versus,
but they did it ahead of the season.
If
I think it may have actually been UMass.
If anybody were to be able to pull off something like that, like as far as a surprise, it probably would be Kirby Smart. Like
I don't think he cares.
I definitely don't think that he would ever. I don't think he would ever do it. I don't think he would ever do it. But if
that's the reason you don't see black as much as you like right now, because he knows what Georgia fans think about it.
Yeah,
and he what would Lane Kiffin call it at Alabama, rat poison? Like he doesn't want to worry about that. Like to him, the uniform is nothing, but he knows to everybody else and possibly his players, it has an effect. So he avoids it like the plague. He focuses on the game, and that's why you haven't seen it.
Yeah,
he's just going to roll out in the standard and play ball. That's it.
Yeah. I think he sees it as a distraction. So let me pivot here. I want to ask you a different Hunter. First off, I can sit and listen to you talk about uniforms for like all day. That's amazing. So I have a question.
Same.
So like,
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I mean, I've got one more.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Like, it's hard when I coached. I used to coach, baseball and football before I tried to, pursue this whole administrator thing and didn't have time for life anymore. But my thing when I would design our uniforms at the school I worked at, and I do a lot of designs for uniforms around the coast of Mississippi now. And when we pick our uniform, this might just be way over the top, but as far as game to game, I always I'll illustrate it with Ole Miss. Because that's probably what I'm most familiar with, and they have a bunch of options, or at least they did. Ole Miss plays teams who have similar color options as they do. So Ole Miss has obviously navy, red, white, And they used to have a white jersey that had all red numbers and stripes and a white jersey that had all navy numbers and stripes. So in a perfect world, I would have every team to where they could mix it up to, like, if Ole Miss was playing Alabama, they would wear primarily blue colors because Alabama is a primarily red team.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if Ole Miss was playing Auburn, who had primarily navy, let's go primarily red colors, whether we're on the road or not. And they did it for a little bit, like when they would play Arkansas, they would wear navy tops, or Arkansas on the road, they wear white with navy accents because Arkansas's red. So I would like to see teams, if they could, it's harder when your team only has a certain amount of colors or whatever, do that. So like I said, certain games would be certain things, it could be for colors like I was talking about. It could be for nostalgia, whatever. But when you play Tennessee, we're red. We're a lot of red. When you play Auburn, we're black. Things like that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's I don't know. A, that's super interesting to me. And B, like I agree that I feel like that's the kind of stuff that Kirby doesn't want to think about. But like, why doesn't Georgia
I know a guy who can think about it for him.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. That's where I'm going, right? Like, why don't these schools have like a hunter who can take that, like, okay, coach, you don't like to think about uniforms. You think it's a waste of time. Okay, I'll think about it and I'll plan it out, and the fans are going to love it. Or most, I would. I don't know.
Well, some of them do.
They do. Yeah. I was about to say they do.
A lot of them do. Yeah.
A lot of schools do have
the challenge
like
is always, right? You have.
Sorry, you're saying a lot of schools do have that guy, and we I'm assuming we don't. I feel like we don't. I don't know. Maybe we do, and they're just not doing it the way we want them to. I don't know.
I feel like it's like a lot of major companies. Like, you have some control over some elements of things. So like, I give you an example of Coke. I don't know. I never worked at Coke, but like, there's a team that's in charge of designing the bottle, and then there's a team that's designing the marketing, right? So like, I don't know if it's just like a synergistic thing. I maybe just made up a word, but like, maybe it's just like a disconnect between the product team and the marketing team, and I come up against that all the time.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what it is. If Georgia has a guy, he's scared of Georgia Twitter. That's what it is. And I don't blame him.
Dog Twitter. Listen, as someone who has personally witnessed the pile-on when Hunter has talked about Georgia uniforms on Dog Twitter, I have to agree. Whoever that person is probably shaking in their boots.
Hold on.
Because of Dog Twitter.
John, you just recently changed your Twitter setup to where he can tag you in these viral Twitter posts.
No, I didn't realize that I couldn't be tagged in tweets. And John Powell was like, hey, you can't be tagged in tweets. And I was like, oh, that's the reason I haven't been tagged in the uniform Twitter, which has saved me from
I've got to the point where, I have certain people who I would like to see, I would like them to see it. But every time I go to post one, I'm like, man, maybe I should take them out here because they don't want to see all these notifications.
This
blows up your head.
This is about to get lit.
What was the one you did like not that long ago? I feel like it was like a month ago. And it was like literally like 100 notifications. I texted Jim. I was like, what is going on?
It's no kidding. Twitter got to the point one time where they stopped sending me notifications. Like, because I had to push notifications. And then like, I looked at it one time and it was like 250 likes. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then I like put my phone away because they were just popping up. And I'm OCD. Like to the extreme. I cannot stand to have an unread notification on my phone. So I have to clear them off. I have to. Well, as soon as it would pop up, I clear them off. Well, it got to the point where here goes 2 or 3 hours go by and there's nothing. No notifications on my screen. And I was like, oh, maybe it stopped. I pull up Twitter and then the little thing down there is red and it says like 500 on it. And I just clicked on it and it had jumped from like 250 to 700, and it didn't even notify me anymore.
Amazing. Well, we all know that. We all know the issue, right?
When Hunter tags you in a post that says that he likes the dog collar, that's what blows up your mentions.
When he likes the dog collar.
Yeah, we all know the issue. The issue with uniforms at places like Georgia and Alabama, where you'll very rarely see any variation of the traditional uniform, is they keep very close tabs on who's donating to the Hartman Fund and what their particular tastes are for tradition. Because I think tradition is still winning the day in Athens, and
which makes
that's going to be hard to overcome.
That's my biggest question too. Is like if you look at the history of Georgia's uniforms, they've changed a lot from what you're calling like tradition to now.
I have a picture of Kirby Smart leading the team out of the tunnel wearing black pants.
I was at that game. That was 1998. That was fall 1998 in Jacksonville against Florida. That's what that game is. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that was my freshman year.
And that made Kirby's aversion to alternate uniforms.
You can't be a fan.
That's what happened.
You can't be a fan of tradition if you like the uniforms now. They're about as non-traditional to the Georgia uniform as you can get. They're just plain. That's what it is.
Yeah.
They're plain. They're just colored jersey with
different colored. They're red jerseys and silver breeches. That's what they are. So
just don't mess with the pants, and you'll be all right. That's what I feel like.
Yeah. So where I was starting to go, Hunter, what I want to know is too. Okay, so my question is, so the things you were talking about, right? Like putting the personal touches into the uniform. Would you agree that that's something that the Hawks are doing right now, like with the MLK jersey and specifically thinking about that? Like, I mean, because to me, that's a super clean jersey. I don't know. I continue, like you were saying, like, as you can go and read, like, I continue to learn more and more about that jersey or the uniform. I guess it's all through the shorts as well. I mean, that is it's clean. B, it's awesome. It's honoring, great history. But I feel like they've done that the right way. So I don't know. I guess, what are your thoughts? Do you agree? Disagree?
And real quick, C, they are 12-2. More importantly, in those jerseys.
Yeah, for sure.
If Georgia never loses the Alabama blackout game, black is permanent.
Yeah.
If they win that game against Alabama, you know what I mean? But as far as the Hawks and, the city, I think what you see with the city edition uniforms is the best and the worst of what you can get from trying to have personal uniforms and alternate uniforms.
Okay.
Because there's so much variation. You can get it totally wrong, but you can get it totally right, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And where you have the people who riot is when they do get it wrong. Right. Like, what comes to mind? The baseball version of the city uniforms they're trying to do now, they're terrible. The
NFL color rush, I don't know. I'm not a fan of those, but
yeah, some of the color rush are okay. Some of them, like the Saints, theirs is great. That should be their permanent uniform. I'll boo Falcons. Whatever.
Boo.
This is where we get to the disagreement.
Throw up the Falcons.
Yeah.
I mean, the Falcons color rush, is that what you call that? Is that what you're calling that gradient thing that goes from red to black?
I don't think that's the color. Is it the color in the garbage? It might be. Yeah, it's horrible. I don't like the gradient either.
Burn it.
Yeah, every team has a
throwback.
The NFL has a color rush thing. Like every team gets a color rush, whatever. I don't remember what that is,
but hang on, what's the Braves city shirt you don't like?
The Braves don't have one. There's only like a couple teams that are getting one.
Okay,
they might get one eventually.
I was like, did I miss something?
No, the Boston one. They themed it around the Boston Marathon and all that, but the actual design was terrible. They look like UCLA.
Got it.
I saw that. I think you tweeted about it.
The only one I kind of liked, and this might be a hot take, was the White Sox. White Sox wasn't bad.
What about Wrigleyville?
I'm trying to think what that one looked like. Oh, there's like look the light blue and red.
Yeah,
not bad. You know, when they do something that incorporates something with the city and they do get it right, looks good.
The only reason I bring the Wrigleyville up is because I've been to Chicago multiple times and I love Wrigleyville.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know, before we close out, obviously the Hawks. So back to the MLK uniforms, they are going to wear those, right? In game. Are they going to wear them in Game 5?
Game
right.
6.
This is going to be the first time they've ever. Oh, they're going to wear them in Game 6.
No.
Okay. Okay. So it's 6. So next home.
Well, they haven't announced. They haven't announced what they're going to wear in Game. Yeah, they haven't announced what they're going to wear in Game 5. So.
Okay.
But they have announced they're going to wear them in Game 6 with the next one.
Okay, I read that wrong. I was like, "Oh my gosh, we're wearing those on the road!" Like what?
That whole icon, and Chance, kudos to 7-6 on their shirt that they did with that. But like that jersey combination with that logo in the center of the of the court. I mean, that's awesome. Like I was watching the game with a guy the other day that hadn't watched a single game of Hawks all season long. And I was telling him, I was like, this is the MLK uniform. This is, the stained glass, it kind of matches with, Ebenezer Baptist. Like, so he was like, oh yeah, that's cool, man. That's really cool. So I feel like that resonates with people.
Yeah. Well, even the stars, so they have stars on the court, 22 stars. They have 22 stars on the side of the shorts that represent 22 of the 29 times that Martin Luther King was jailed for doing, fighting for justice. They call them freedom stars. Yeah. So that whole situation, I think
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, the Hawks really got right, because even the gold that they use represents, this like royalty gold because of Martin Luther King and all these things, and they really got that right. I think what's been amazing is that, I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious, as Michael Scott would say. But they're 12-2 in those uniforms in that court setup.
Yeah. And
for what it represents, and for them to be having those kind of results in that, like that's what you can only hope for or dream about if you're a franchise, if you're wearing your kind of a city edition that represents something very special to your, little plot of earth, little plot on the globe.
I was going to say, that's more of a global edition.
Yeah. And so, but what you're representing, right, for you to have those kind of results is just amazing. And so,
right.
I was at one of the games, Game 6, I guess, versus Philadelphia, where they wore those uniforms and had that court set up. And it's amazing to see in person. They lost that game, so I will not be going back because they're 12-2, and one of the two games that they lost, I actually attended with them wearing the city edition. So I will not.
You're not ever allowed to go again.
No, I'm not allowed.
I thought that was my fault. So because I didn't watch that game because we had tickets to a baseball game in Charlotte, the Charlotte Knights, and so I missed it. And so I thought that was me, but apparently it was you. So that makes me feel a little better. Maybe we won the series, so that's okay.
Well,
but yeah, man,
hey, my got a podcast fun fact.
Yeah,
my got a podcast fun fact. Because of the Alabama blackout that you mentioned, that we should have, if we'd have won that, whenever we have a planned blackout, I don't ever do it, because
we'll see.
I went so far and above. On that blackout. I was just like, nope, I'm done.
I think that's where I'm kind of unapologetically not superstitious about uniforms. At the end of the day, the kids practiced all week. The coaches know what they're doing. The uniform, it does not make a difference. It does not at all, other than that opening kickoff and that atmosphere. After those pads clap the first time, it don't matter anymore at all. None.
No, Hunter.
Except for to you in the stands. Not to them. It does not matter anymore at all.
I 100% agree.
That's where I run in. People are very nostalgic. People are very superstitious. I am unapologetically neither. Mm-hmm. So wear what looks good.
If you look good, you look good, you play good.
you do. I mean,
you feel good. Deion Sanders enter the room.
Also, if this is all, at the end of the day, a lot of this is about making money. Mm-hmm. More alternates, more chances to make money.
I agree 100% with that, by the way.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We entered the conversation talking about making more money.
Yeah. Right.
We entered the conversation about making more money, and now we're leaving the conversation about making more money.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
it seems appropriate on the eve of name, image, likeness.
It's almost like there's a theme.
If you're a traditionalist who likes, the red top and whatever, go buy one. You like the black top better, but go buy that one too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. I just want to know who Peter Millar is going to sponsor.
Yeah. I don't know. Nothing was more perfect than Brock Vandegrift at Onward Reserve. I don't know. Like, that was too perfect. Like, when I saw that, I was holy cow. But yeah, so I don't know. It's been awesome having both of you guys on. We'll have to do this again for sure. But I did just want to check back with both of you guys if there's anything you wanted to call out. I know I mentioned your Twitter handles before, but anywhere else anyone can find you guys. Hunter, we'll start with you. Hunter, and I don't know, anything else you want to shout out to, or just tell us where we can find you.
Sure. At Hunt the Jones on every social media. I try to keep it streamlined, easier to find that way. When you're going to come at me about a logo or a uniform, if you don't like it, that's fine. Just be nice about it.
Yes.
That's my one request.
Amen.
Yeah.
You can't please everybody. Never will.
For sure.
Yeah.
But be nice.
Well, I'm at John Tweet Sports, and I'll apologize in advance for when I get on the Bourbon and Goat Florida fans. It's one of my favorite things to do in the entire world.
When you go after any opposing fan base, because I've seen you go after a few of them.
Well, usually those are times that I regret immediately, but also have fun in the moment. So
I have fun watching from afar, if it makes you feel any better.
We currently have 3 card-carrying members of Bourbon Twitter, and I'm the outlier there, but I'm trying to get through the gateways through you guys.
We got to do the tasting notes of the Larceny Barrel Proof.
Yeah, right.
It's the Larceny Barrel Proof. Highly recommend if you can find it for around $60. Fantastic bottle of bourbon,
which Hunter did today.
Yeah, that's why I picked that specific price point.
That's why we picked it up.
That's awesome. All right, well, it's been great having you guys on. Like I said, we'll definitely have to do this again, Hunter, for sure. I know I can sit and talk uniforms with you all day. I don't know, big fan of the uniform talk, anyways. But and then John, also, this has been awesome. Honestly, full disclosure, right? This is the first time that I have talked to you guys, actually talked to you. We've exchanged on Twitter, who knows how many times. But this has been awesome to actually talk face to face, virtually at least. But this has been awesome. So thanks so much for coming on. Would love to have you guys again.
Well, that's the beauty of dog Twitter, though. We just have so many fun stories about just meeting and connection.
Great. Dog Twitter is undefeated. They got
undefeated.
The bone hat, which I'm sure everybody's a fan of. Dog collars and bones.
I still can't believe that.
Talking about the bone hat.
I can't believe that happened. Unbelievable.
There is nothing dog Twitter can't do. Nothing.
Yeah, and I am a huge fan of My God, a podcast. Even bigger fan of the My God, a podcast gifs that you can find on the Twitters. So just if you're ever looking for a GIF, just type in My God, a podcast into the Twitter GIF search, and there are some good ones.
And this is where John Powell says, and if Jim would upload the rest of them, there would be even more because I am slow. So there's more coming.
We are sitting on some for next season, by the way.
Yeah. There's more coming that way. All right. Well, thanks so much, guys, for coming on. Like I said, appreciate it. I'd love to do this again. And go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.